Some More Outdoor, Episode 5.
Welcome to Some More Outdoor, where we speak with authors, entrepreneurs, and business owners about how the outdoors has affected their life and their projects. This show is to remind you of the healing properties of the outdoors. So, are you ready to learn what the nature effect can do for your life? Well, here's your host, Brett Trout.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Some More Outdoor. I'm your host, Brett Trout, and this is the podcast dedicated to reminding you to get out and experience the nature effect. My goal is to help you reestablish a connection with nature so you can live with childlike wonder again. So thanks for being here today. I have a very special guest, someone that I met about 5 years ago, Marta Goertzen. How are you doing today, Marta?
Fine. How are you?
I am doing excellent. So excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited about this.
Yes, definitely. So Marta is an entrepreneur, dog lover, head WordPress geek over at Trail GuideWebWorks.com. She's a writer and Oregon explorer currently living along the south central Oregon coast. Her new project, Selah Reflections.com, focuses on the importance of taking time to recharge and refresh in the midst of the chaotic world that we live in. So what I love about what Marta does is because it's so much along, her message is so much very similar to what my message is about getting outdoors and unplugging from all the distractions and, as she says, the chaotic world that we live in. So Marta, I've given an overview about you. Why don't you go ahead and just kind of dive into it and elaborate on who you are and what you love to do?
Yeah, it's hard to believe that it's been 5 years since we first met out in Colorado. That was quite amazing. Yeah. Well, I have been self-employed for almost 8 years, 7 years. I've lost track. 7 years in January. And it's been an incredible journey of learning more about myself, I think, and learning the importance of getting outdoors more than I ever had in the corporate environment. So that's one of the reasons I was excited about coming on to your show here, is that the outdoors has become more and more important. The more self-employed I become and the more I am in that world, the more I realize getting outside is so important. And one of my goals of becoming self-employed is I really wanted a dog. Really. I've wanted one most of my adult life and as a kid. But in my corporate environment, I was gone 10, 12 hours a day, and I couldn't do that to a dog. So once I started working from home, I got a dog, and he also is my inspiration to get off the computer and get outside. You'll see all my bio pics. There's usually me and my dog Bailey, and he's actually laying on the floor next to me here, and surprisingly not snoring right now. He's actually resting pretty quietly.
That's so awesome to hear about your dog, and it just reminds me of how much they want to play.
Yes.
And how much they're the ones that, without your Bailey and without Taya, my dog, it's just like they want us to get outside as much and play with them. And there's just a constant reminder.
You probably have gotten this email from our mutual friend Kevin Miller this morning asking what makes your cells vibrate. And one of the first things I thought of was when I'm out hiking with Bailey and just we're exploring, we're having fun, and he is just running like a mad dog and just happy in his element, jumping up and down and jumping over logs and over streams. And that always just brings a huge smile to my face to see somebody or an animal in their element like that and totally alive is quite amazing.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that part with us. And I'm so excited about the story that you're going to share with us today. One of the things, I was on your website this morning and I was so excited to actually see that you've launched a calendar for 2015 with photographs and quotes.
Yes.
So I know that you're big on quotes and photographs. So I always like to start this show off with some type of nature quote, whether it's an actual quote that has to do with nature or not. But share with us one of your favorite quotes and how the Some More Outdoor listeners can apply this quote to their life.
Yeah, this one actually had me stumped because I'm a quote collector, and I was looking through my quotes because nothing really came to mind, and I thought, what can I mention here? And then it hit me this morning. Years ago, I had the opportunity to go to the very first Storyline conference with Donald Miller. It was up in Portland, a few hours north of where I live, and in that seminar, and also in his book, A Million Miles, and I always forget the name wrong, A Million Miles in 1,000 Years. mentions a quote that where you do what you do matters. And that has become one of my favorite quotes. As soon as I thought of that one this morning, it made me think of a great nature quote, because being outside matters. And making sure that I can see the outdoors when I'm working 10-hour days on a website or working on getting the calendar ready for the new year. Where you do what you do matters, from the inside and what you can see, from being outside and exploring nature. It's so important. And the environment and the beauty that you can see being outdoors is so important. And it's become very important in my life.
Yeah, that quote, I wrote it down and just kind of looking at it. Where you do what you do matters. I've never heard that before.
Yeah,
so
it was from...
huge impact.
It is. And it was from his friend Bob Goff, the author of Love Does. That one has always stuck with me. Out of all the things I learned at that incredible conference and the people I got to meet, that was the one line that really caught me. Where you do what you do matters.
So S'more Outdoor listeners, where you do what you do matters. And as an advocate, both Marta and I are advocate of the outdoors. The outdoors is a great place to do what you love to do and just become inspired and create and just to get back and, like I said, reconnect yourself with nature. Well, thanks for that quote, Marta. Now, I'm going to jump into a childhood memory. Now, Marta was actually kind enough to submit a story for an ebook that I was writing 6 months ago, or that I wrote 6 months ago. I love what she put in that story. Marta, I want you to take us to a time in your life from your childhood about your experience with the outdoors and what that time meant to you.
One of my strongest memories is going backpacking with my dad when I was quite small. I was trying to remember how old I was. I was probably third grade, right around there, fourth grade possibly. And we went on a weekend backpacking trip. And it was just the two of us. And I had my little backpack, carrying my clothes, and Dad had the tent and the food and his fishing pole. And that was it was a magical time. I still remember that to this day, of just going and exploring and hiking with my dad, and he'd go off fishing and I'd be, helping by throwing rocks in the river while he's fishing, and just loving being outside and being with my dad. And then at the end of that day, I think it was probably the first or second day we were there, Dad was fishing kind of late, and it was starting to get dark. And I got a little scared that we weren't going to make it back to our tent site. So I kept saying, Dad, don't you think we need to go? I think we need to go. No, we're fine. We're fine. And of course, we made it back to our tent and our campsite fine. But I still remember that to this day, of just being out there with my dad and exploring and going backpacking with just the two of us.
Oh, that's such a great story. And I love that as a child, just not being sure of stuff, and then just to be able to have your father there for the encouragement and the support. And, I'm so proud of your dad for just being able to take you out there and help you experience that, because that story right there, maybe not a lot of people, especially if somebody's grew up in the city life, they haven't experienced something like that. And I hope that the people, after listening to this show, will definitely start getting out more. But when they do get married and they do have kids, and that they start getting their kids in an environment like that. They don't have to know how to go fly fishing or whatever, but they can at least get out there and take a course. I mean, everybody's teaching courses now. You can teach some type of course. I was just talking to a gentleman on one of the episodes, Sean Stratton. He's in Calgary, Canada. And he was telling me that they have, I forget what the business company name was, but they've set it up to, in one of their football stadiums, they teach people how to camp.
Oh, wow.
Which is really kind of a great idea. I've thought about that on a smaller scale, but just to be able to do that, there's so much that people can learn now, and they could probably even find it on Meetup. But thank you so much for sharing that story with us, because I know it'll resonate with a lot of people who don't have the opportunity to get out as much as they would like to, but remember stories about like that. And that's why I want people to live with that childlike wonder and remember these stories. And I think that by hearing your story, that'll have an impact on somebody and help remind them about a time in their life when they had an experience with their family or their friends.
Yes, that's definitely one of the memories I treasure and something that I carry with me. And it started as a young child, my love of the outdoors. As an adult, vitally important. And I'm so glad my dad took the time to do that. And growing up all the way through high school, every summer we would always go camping at least once, and usually a couple times throughout the summer. And it was so important. It was such an important part of my life growing up.
Now, you and I are very similar in the sense that we started when we were young. What do you think? Because I had like an aha moment not until college that I realized my passion for the outdoors, even though I loved going on our camping trips and I loved going water skiing. When do you think that you figured out, was it something that was a part of your life that you just love the outdoors so much? Or was there a certain time in your life when you realized, you know what, I really need to do this because I love it?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting because I was thinking about this the other day, and I kind of lost the excitement and the joy. My parents separated when I was quite young, and living with my mom is not quite the outdoor adventurer that my dad is. And so for many years, we didn't do, unless I was with my dad in the summer, I didn't get to do it as much. And once I got into college, working 2 and 3 jobs, trying to get through college, and then my first corporate job, I kind of lost touch with that part of me. And I actually came down and visited family here along the Oregon coast. I don't even remember when it was, but after that, we went and explored the bays. We went crabbing. We were outside a lot. And I just remembered, all of a sudden it came flooding back to me how much I love this. And realizing that was such an important, big missing piece out of my life by not being outdoors more. And that summer, after I came down here for a visit, I went on a week-long camping trip by myself up and down the Oregon coast. That, again, just cemented it. Okay, this has to become a priority again. So I started looking for areas where I lived at that time for places to just go start walking. And thankfully, there's a huge state park about 10 minutes away that had several miles of forest trails. And so I would start going out there and walking or running and really enjoying it and starting buying the guidebooks of what are the hikes that I could get to. Unfortunately, in that area, there was nothing other than that one state park. There really wasn't anything close. And most of my friends at that time had babies and were not really excited to go camping. So I started going camping by myself because I knew I needed to get out there. And thankfully, once my friends' kids got a little bit older and not in the infant stage, they started going camping again. And so we'd start going as big groups. These friends are basically my family. We've known each other for so long. So being able to go out there and photograph us hiking and playing and canoeing, and it's been wonderful. And then moving down here to the South Central Coast, it's been incredible. I've been here for going on 4 years, probably 3.5, 4 years now. And within 10 minutes, I can be at the beach. I can be out on a forest trail. Within a half hour to 40 minutes, I can be in all sorts of different environments of hiking and exploring, and it's been wonderful. It's been a wonderful, in that respect, it's been a wonderful move down to the Oregon coast.
Yeah, and I'm definitely jealous. In some sense, people get jealous of where I live because I have the opportunity to drive to Yosemite and Sequoia and Kings Canyon, but to be able to have a trail within 10 minutes of your house, to be able to have the ocean within 10 minutes. I think that's what you said, right? The ocean within 10 minutes and stuff. It's just, for a lot of people, we definitely don't have the opportunity to do that. But it's such being able to, I was talking to Kevin Miller the other day, and he talked about his move. He realized it, and one of the suggestions that he had was sometimes maybe you need to move to a place like that, and which is what my wife and I did a couple of years ago. We didn't just choose any house; we chose a house with a big backyard with 9 redwood trees in it, because I knew personally that after the 5 years that we had been living in a house without a backyard, having a backyard for the dogs and for us was something that was important for our well-being. Where you live just sounds like an amazing place, and I know your dog couldn't live anywhere else, right?
No, since we moved down here, we've discovered he's a saltwater dog.
Saltwater dog.
He loves, as soon as we hit the beach, as soon as I let him go, he's running out to the water. And fresh water, he can smell it and sniff it, play with it, but the salt water, he loves to run into the waves and jump in the waves and bite the waves. And I've had people go on walks with me on the beach. I said, you're not seeing the real Bailey. He's a lazy dog throughout the day, but you get him to the beach or hiking, he's a totally different dog. He's in his element, either hiking or on the beach. It's his place.
Well, good. Okay, so I'm going to go into an outdoor experience story because I know that we all have different places. And you talked a little bit about yours of going down and visiting friends down in Oregon. Tell us about a time when you visited one of the most beautiful places that you had ever been to. And take us to that time in your life and tell us that story and what that place means to you.
First thing came to mind when I was thinking about this question is I had been on a road trip and going down to Phoenix, and my friend and I who were driving back, had visited my sister and came back up, and we decided to take a detour and go over to the Grand Canyon. I remember driving up to that, and that was the first time I experienced something that literally took my breath away. It was so stunning and so vast and so incredibly beautiful that I will always remember that moment. I don't remember much about that trip. It was many, many years ago, but I remember that first initial drive up and literally having my breath taken away by the Grand Canyon because it was just so amazing.
It is absolutely amazing, and just one of the most beautiful places that I've ever been to as well. Mm-hmm. And as I was listening to your story, and I think about, okay, so have you lived in Oregon your whole life?
Except for 3 years as a kid, I lived up in Canada, but all the other years I've lived here in Oregon.
Surrounded by trees, tall trees, and things like that. So,
Yep.
I can relate with you with when you see the Grand Canyon, because it's the experience of something new like that. It just takes your breath away. And it reminds me of growing up in Ojai. It was more of a chaparral. There wasn't a whole lot of large trees. I mean, we had oak trees on our property, but to really there wasn't really high mountains where you could get to pine trees and stuff like that. It's a lot of just shrubs and
right.
Mountains. But the first time when I had gone to school up in Eureka at Humboldt State University, when I passed over the Golden Gate Bridge and started getting into the environment where the redwoods are, it took my breath away, and I fell in love with that. So I can definitely relate with, you growing up around trees all the time and the Oregon environment, and to be able to see something different like the Grand Canyon and how vast that is. It's just, there's nothing that can compare to that feeling.
No, it really can't.
And it's one of those things that I try and feel every time I go out. Just I try and go and venture, and I want people to do that, because the feeling that you get, it's hard to describe.
It is hard to describe.
That
and pictures do not do it justice.
No, they don't.
You can try all you want, but it does not do it justice.
It doesn't. And I'm going to kind of go on a tangent here a little bit, but one of the things that I notice is that, and just like you coming up with a calendar, what do you think, so I'm putting you on the spot, what do you think that it is about pictures that people love to have in their home and love to share?
I think for a lot of people, it is a desire to be outside, and either they don't feel safe going outside because they're not the camping type or going on a backpacking trip, but they long for that beauty and bringing nature inside. That's some of the comments because I have sold my photography throughout the years at craft shows and through my website, and it brings people to a moment in time, something that maybe they pull from their own memory or for an emotion and feeling that they long for, of being outside. But nature, as you've mentioned before, nature is healing. Creation, God's creation is so healing to be outside in. And when you live in chaos and you're busy and you're working and you're taking care of kids or dogs, in my case, bringing that beauty indoors, bringing God's creation inside your house can be very calming and very healing.
That's such a beautiful way to put that. Yes. Even right now I have a picture of Yosemite Valley that I made on a redwood plaque that's up above my desk, just to be able to look. And as you were telling that story, I'm looking at this picture because I know what it means to me. And it's a place that when I can't get up there, it helps me think about that place, and it provides a feeling. But I just realized, we spend so much time in front of the computer and staring, and our depth perception doesn't go that far. But like when we go out for a drive, or when we go out into the forest or the mountains or whatever, then our eyes can definitely focus further away, which is very healing for our eyes. And I just realized maybe it has something to do too. Like I can look at this picture of Yosemite Valley and I can focus on the foreground, but I can also focus my eyes on the background as well. So it's kind of giving me that same effect as far as focusing on the very background of the picture. So, well, thanks for sharing with that, because it was something that I just thought of. And as someone who takes nature photography, I just kind of wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
I was actually talking about it today. I can't remember who I was talking to about it, but for me, it's getting out there and exploring. It's taking the photos. It's noticing the details. I mean, and sometimes like going to the Grand Canyon, it's so vast. There's a picture that it's something you cannot capture because it just won't do it justice. But you can notice the details. You can notice something small compared to the vastness of the Grand Canyon. And when I'm out photographing on our trips and adventures, it's really what pulls me in are the details, the small things that I notice on the trip. And it becomes like a treasure hunt, because when you're on a trip like that out and you're out exploring, it's the little things that bring you to the moment, that you're in the moment, you're finding the details. It's like being on a treasure hunt. And then you get to come back and you get to explain what you found and share what you found with other people, and being able to bring that joy of what you discovered out in nature and bringing back that to share with others. I thoroughly and completely enjoy that. It's a gift I'm able to give some people in terms of some of the things I create, or sharing an experience. And maybe next time they go out with me. So that's also fun too.
Absolutely. So I'm going to jump right into what I call the nature effect. And as you know, I wrote that book, Experience the Nature Effect and Live with Childlike Wonder Again. And so it's a term that I came up with, is how nature has an impact on you. But how does the nature effect have an impact in your business, in your life today?
In the winter here in Oregon, we tell people we're green for a reason, and it's because it rains a lot. And I can tell that once we're in an extended period of rain, which it can be raining buckets for days on end, and I'm not able to get outside, I'm not able to focus on my work as much, I get very restless. And over the years, I have suffered from depression. And when I'm not outside on a regular basis, it can start to creep back up. It's very important. And one of the reasons I got a dog was, once I was self-employed, is that I knew I'd be on the computer a lot, and I needed a reminder to get off the computer with that dog laying next to me or sitting right next to me, staring at me, saying it's time. Getting off the computer and getting outside and making sure he gets his daily walk in the morning, and making sure that several times a month we get out and either get to the beach or go for a hike and spend some quality time outside. Because if I don't, it really does affect my creativity and how I feel mentally and emotionally. It plays a vital, important part of who I am to get outside.
Now, you mentioned something that I've thought about a lot about, because I don't know anybody that has suffered from it, but you talked about depression and how the outdoors helps in that way. Now, I haven't done any research on depression, so I don't know like the medical diagnosis and things like that. Can you give an overview how nature actually had an impact? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are suffering from depression and, maybe are going to a therapist or maybe sitting at home and it's just overcome them. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a hard one, because for everybody it is different. And for me, what I know, I can tell when I'm longing to just sit on the beach and hear the waves, it's time for me to get outside. And whether I've lived down here on the coast or even before, when I didn't live, I lived about an hour and a half away from the coast, there was that longing to sit on the beach and just hear the waves. As you sit, the sound just helps relax me. And I've heard this from other people too, that it's very relaxing, almost like your cares are being washed away. And you feel a lot more lighthearted. But when we're inside with air-conditioned air and we're with canned entertainment, and you are just kind of cruising along, that for me is a lot of times, or when I've overworked, a lot of times if I work too hard or too many hours, the depression does start to come in. And being outside changes my perspective. It gets me to breathe deeper. It kind of clears the cobwebs out. I've talked about it, that being outside is healing. Hearing the birds going through the underbrush, or seeing the deer walk along, seeing God's creation and being out in what He created, for me is very healing, both emotionally, spiritually, and physically. It's re-energizing and it's calming. A lot of times with depression, for some people, and for me in particular, racing thoughts of, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do this, and do that, and my project list is 10,000 feet long, and this person needs help, and it just becomes too much. And being outside just kind of calms all that down, helps me breathe a little bit deeper and say, it's okay, just for the moment, right here, you're fine.
Yeah.
The to-do list will come back soon enough, but for right now, and sometimes I feel it's God pulling me out, saying, so it's time to enjoy me and time to enjoy what I've created. And in the mornings, I try to make sure to take Bailey for a walk every morning. And a lot of times that's prayer time. That's prayer time to say thank you for this creation and the beauty that I'm seeing, and just getting prepared for the day.
Well, thank you. I know that wasn't one of the questions, but I really appreciate your input on that. And it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes is from John Muir, which is, break away every once in a while and head to the mountains or walk in the woods and wash your spirit clean. And that's exactly what you're talking about. It's just getting out there and just washing all that away, and allowing nature into your life and connecting with your surroundings, and ultimately connecting with yourself and with God, which is what you're doing when you're out there. Because I know that He smiles when you're happy, and to be able to, and that's why I think that He's placed it on the heart of like Theodore Roosevelt to start getting the national parks into. And Abraham Lincoln and all that, just going and doing all this stuff to advocate the national parks has been huge and set that aside for our country. So awesome. Thanks for sharing that story with us. So let's dive into an inspiration that you've received from the outdoors. What's one idea, which I'm sure you have many as an outdoor advocate, but what's one idea that was inspired from your time outdoors?
There's so much that happens. A lot of times, if I'm trying to troubleshoot a website or trying to troubleshoot a technical issue, I just have to let it go. And a lot of times the next morning walking Bailey, it goes, oh, okay, now let's go try that. And a lot of times that's the solution. But something I've wanted to do for years. I stole part of this idea from our mutual friend, Justin Lucas Savage. Years ago, he talked about creating a business development weekend or like a small mastermind group where you went out camping and worked on your business. No computers, no cell phone, and just getting outside. And I have loved that idea. And one of these years, I haven't figured out how to do it yet, but I would like to start offering workshops where people can come into a camping situation or a retreat situation and be outside, change your perspective, and work on your business. And that is something I've thought about for years, and currently I'm not in a position to do it yet, but that's still on my bucket list. I would like to be able to offer that. And I remember when Justin first mentioned that idea, my hand shot up and it said, if you do that, I will be there. So a lot of times it's changing my perspective and getting outside to do something new. And I find that to be very inspiring.
Well, then maybe that's something that we need to start at the national parks.
Yes, I have thought of you. I have thought of you, and it's more outdoor. Yep.
I think that's an awesome idea because I think that a lot of people could benefit from that. You know, in my research for different people that I would love to have on the show, I came across this website called it's Shelter-Co. It's a shelter company. Basically what it was, she was a marketing person and her husband was an outdoor guy, and they now have these big old giant canvas tents that they set up for corporations in the outdoors, and they do everything for them. So very similar to what the S'more Outdoor was, but on a grander scale, and it's pretty fascinating. So hopefully I can get an interview with them and talk to them about their business.
Oh, that's a great idea.
I see a lot more people doing that, the more research that I come across. But for business owners, and to be able to talk and just even have like a coach come there with, and have that environment. I think it's huge. And that's what I loved about when I first met you in Colorado, going up and spending time up at 9,000 feet in these cabins and just talking about business and stuff is that was killer. And I wish that Kevin would do those eventually again.
Yeah, hint, Kevin.
If he feels like it. But, for even on a smaller scale with different people, there's so many different types of business organizations or business events that always happen in hotels. You start one that happens outside.
And again, where you do what you do matters. The most impact I've gotten out of events have been the ones out in Colorado, out in the mountains. More than anything I've done in a downtown environment, in a hotel where you're not seeing the outside. Those were the events and the people that I met, I remember, and a lot of them I'm friends with to this day. But also what I learned in those situations and going outside. We'd go out for a morning hike and read morning devotions. And those are the times that I remember the most, being outside.
Yep. And the memories that we create, even like you talked about the memory with your dad and that first camping trip. It's I don't remember a lot of my time that I've spent indoors. But those times that I've spent, even though, it's not constantly every day, but it's even those times that I've spent outdoors, with friends and family, and or even just by myself when an idea came to me, had a huge impact on who I've become today on that. So, well, right on. So we're going to go into the last few questions to help give the listeners an idea of what they can also do to incorporate the outdoors into their life. And so the first question is what do you do when you get outdoors?
It's usually a combination. The morning walks that, because we're usually gone for about an hour by the time we get down there, get out there and get moving. Sometimes it's just, I need to clear my head, so it's just quiet. Sometimes it's a time for prayer. Sometimes it's listening to an audiobook, and sometimes it's with my camera. When we're hiking and exploring or out on the coastline, it's definitely about the physical activity of getting out there and stretching my legs and pushing myself to being tired instead of just sitting at the computer chair. But it's also about discovery. It's about taking my camera and looking for the details. Like I've mentioned with the Grand Canyon, the beach can be so vast that you just can't capture it. But when you can find the little details and go on a treasure hunt, it really brings me into being in the moment. I'm not worried about what's on my to-do list. I'm looking at the ground. I'm looking at the sea. I'm looking at what Bailey is doing. It really is about being in the moment. And a lot of times it's a treasure hunt, see what I can find and bring back to share.
I think that one of the things that a lot of people, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately, is that people just don't know what to do outside.
Yes.
And, you know, you had mentioned something that I had said before, but even just getting out for a walk and you know, there's sometimes that I'll take my dog with me. There's sometimes I'll go by myself and listen to an audiobook. But then there's other times that I'll just go either with my dog or by myself or my wife when she goes. But that I just go to look at the things around me, you know, to notice different things around me that I wouldn't normally notice.
Well, we live in a very noisy world, and being outside where all you're hearing is nature, even for me, for someone who loves it, it takes me some time to relax and let go and be okay with the silence. There's podcasts I want to listen to and books that I don't have time to read, so I go find the audiobook. I'm on the computer a lot, working on websites or working on my photography when I can. And my email is busy, and Facebook, and my chat messages through Skype. And it's hard to convince people that it's okay to be quiet. It's okay to not have all your electronics with you. And there are times I can tell, even though I listen to a really good book, there are times I realize I just need the silence. And that's where I love the beach, because the sound of the waves, like I said earlier, is very calming. But there are times when it's okay to be afraid of the silence and go with it anyway, and just enjoy it for a half hour, and let the silence be calming and healing.
Yeah, and I noticed that recently. I started walking in our neighborhood again, now that it's a little bit cooler, rather than over 100 in the mornings.
Yes.
But just going for a walk and with my dog around the neighborhood and the noise of the cars and everything. So I decided, you know what, I found a little trail that goes through our city that's got a river that goes through it, man-made irrigation canal, I guess you would say. And but just walking back there, there's not a whole lot of people back there. There's ducks and herons that are flying around, and some people with their dogs walking and stuff. But just finding that, I needed to find a place where when I can't or don't have the time to go up to Yosemite or Sequoia, where I can at least go and it's still quiet without cars driving by and stuff like that. So
it makes an amazing difference
on that. So when you don't, I know you shared a little bit about it, but when you don't spend time outdoors, what negative effects do you see in your life and business?
Yeah, I find I become even more of a workaholic than I already am. And I'm on the computer even longer because I want to tackle that to-do list. And through that, I lose focus on a project. My feeling of creativity, it kind of gets extinguished. And if I go too far, the depression does start to creep back in. So it can have some pretty serious negative effects by not getting outside.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. And you're hearing that from two people that love the outdoors and love being outside and know how it impacts their life. So those of you that don't get out at all, I want you to think about where you're at in your life right now. I want you to think about how you're feeling on your way home from work or on your way to work this morning or whenever you're listening to this, because you want to change and you've come across this show because you realize that the outdoors can have a huge impact on your life. Now you just need to get out there and make it a priority and help eliminate some of these negative effects that we know that we feel when we don't get outdoors as much. So now, how do you make sure that it's one of the most important things that you do in your life?
I got a dog.
Got a dog.
That was really one of the reasons I got him, because as much as I knew I loved the outdoors and needed it, that being an entrepreneur, it can become all encompassing. and knowing he needs to get outside, and also getting a dog because Bailey is a teddy bear, but he is rather big and he's black and he's unsure of people. So I feel a lot safer going on hikes with him because a lot of times my friends and family can't go. So a lot of times it is just me, and it's allowed me to explore further and trails that I wouldn't normally feel safe by myself. But with him, I feel like I can go out and explore even more because I do have a big black dog that makes people think twice about coming up to me. Maybe they shouldn't. And thankfully, I've never been in a position where I have felt unsafe out hiking along the coast, because the coastline has an amazing set of trails all up and down the Oregon coast. And I've never felt unsafe from people and even from animals. And I do believe that having a dog has made that safer for me, and also assures my family and friends that I'm not going out completely on my own as well.
Right. Well, and it's comforting.
It is.
You know, there's been times where I've gone for a walk up in Sequoia and it's like, okay, is there a bear around? Or,
yes.
you know, or you're looking around, but at least with somebody there, a companion, a friend or whatever,
yes.
Just feels good.
Yes, it does.
It feels good to be there. So can you share with us one of your favorite places you like to go to get away and think, and what that place means to you?
I prefer to have water, whether it's the ocean or a stream trickling by or alongside the river. There's something about being outdoors next to water that is very calming, and I really do enjoy that. One of my favorite hiking trails, there's two along the coast that I really enjoy. There's one that's about 40 minutes south here it's called the Cape Arago Sunset Bay Trail. And it's along the cliff line, and so you can see way out into the ocean, but you also are wandering in and out of the woods and in through a gorgeous landscape garden, but then back into these little treasure coves, these little coves of beach that very few people get to. Those are some of my favorite places because I get a variety of scenery and experiences. The variety is great, especially as a photographer, because I want to see different things on this trip. So something with variety and preferably with water.
And it sounds amazing and beautiful over there.
It can be.
You know, yes. I see pictures of the Oregon coast, and I've been up to the up as high as Crescent City on the coast, and then going over to, I forget what cities like over by Ashland or Medford, going in that way. So I've never been up on the Oregon coast itself, but even just the Northern California coast, I imagine a lot like what the Oregon coast is in different places that I've been to up there. So I can attest to that beauty.
Yes.
The advent of the internet and Google search, you can search pretty much anything like Oregon coast and see what we're talking about, and Redwood, Redwood National Park and different things like that that we're talking about to see. But last one that I liked, because people struggle with getting outdoors. And well, I think that they struggle, but I think it's more of an excuse on why they're not getting outdoors, because they have the time. What is the best advice that you have for someone who wants to get out more, but really struggles with that time?
As someone who loves it, I run into the same thing. Do I really have time to take Bailey on a walk this morning? And I say yes. You know, even if it's just down the road for 5 minutes, getting outside. I keep going back to getting a dog, getting to the point where you have to have somebody that you're responsible for that needs to get outside. For me, it's been wonderful. But even to the point, because, talking like you're talking about the national parks and the redwood forest, I'm talking about being on the coast. And to someone doesn't have that opportunity around them, it can go like, well, what can I do? And a lot of times it's finding a local park that has a trail to walk through. Even along the coastline here, we have smaller parks that have little half-mile trails around them that people really enjoy. That even just something like that, where you're outside in nature and you're seeing something besides the inside of your house. And a lot of times, my older sister and her family, they just bought a house down in Houston, and they moved down about a year ago. One of the things they really wanted was, they knew they had to be in a housing development, but they wanted a trail system. And they wanted to be able to get out. And I'm trying to remember if the new house has it. I know their first house did have a really neat trail system throughout the development. And there were man-made lakes, there were man-made trails. And it was just wonderful. It doesn't have to be going on an exotic adventure. It can really just be going down to the park and sitting on the park bench or walking the trail around the park. Even that can make such a huge difference.
Oh, and it does make a huge difference for a lot of people. And one of this gentleman a while back had told me, his name's Eric Gale, And he had said, sometimes he forgets just even sitting on his back porch and listening to the rain when it's raining, because you live, like you said, you live in a place where it rains a lot. It's just sitting outside and listening to that rain. There's a huge impact that has.
Yes.
On us. So, well, thank you so much for being here today, Marta, and I really appreciate you sharing your story and being able to talk with you about the outdoors and how you utilize it in your life and in your business. Can you share some final words of encouragement on how S'more Outdoor listeners can connect with you?
Yes. As a web designer, you can find me at trailguidewebworks.com. That was a new rebranding this year, and working with a marketing coach, they said, okay, you love the outdoors. We need to incorporate that. And I'm going, yes, I like that. So that was a new rebranding this year is trailguidewebworks.com. And also I started a new blog this year, as you mentioned in the intro, of SelahReflections.com. And it really was brought out of a desire to help people who do work from home and finding that balance, because working from home, as wonderful it is, has its challenges, and you don't get out of the house as much. And through that, getting outdoors is even more important. And so sharing, being able to get outside and balance your different priorities and your responsibilities. As you can also find me at SelahReflections.com.
Can you do me a favor too, and just give if you feel comfortable doing it, your Instagram ID, because you do a lot of pictures on Instagram.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You can visit either of my websites. I have my Instagram there as well, but it's Marta, MartaD for Dawn, and Goertzen, Goertzen. But you also can visit both of my websites, and my Instagram profile is there as well. And
I'll have the links to all of Marta's stuff on the show notes as well, so you can connect. And just she takes some amazing pictures of she likes to take close-up pictures of different things of out in nature, and so I always love seeing those pictures and stuff. Well, thanks again, Marta, for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you,
and look forward to everything that you're accomplishing with your business and with your blog.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you having me on the show.
That's it for today's episode of S'more Outdoor. I'm just so excited to be here with you today to share the stories and outdoor experiences from people like Marta. So a few things before I go. You can head on over to s'moreoutdoor.com to see the recap of Marta's show on her show notes page, along with ways that you can connect with her. Just type Marta in the search bar. That's MARTA. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, we would love it if you would leave a comment on her page where Marta and I will respond. To stay updated with new episodes, make sure you subscribe to the podcast by either clicking subscribe in iTunes, the subscribe button on Marta's show notes page, or from the app on your phone. If you would leave a comment and rating for the show on iTunes, that would be awesome. This helps to get the show noticed so others like you and I can learn about how the nature effect can have an impact in their lives and become inspired by these stories. Also, like us on Facebook at facebook.com/SmoreOutdoor and follow us on Twitter. My username is @BATRaudt. That's BATRAUDT. And make sure to sign up at S'more Outdoor. That way you won't miss out on any exclusive content I send out. So I hope Marta's story has inspired you to reconnect with nature and start living with childlike wonder again. Thank you for tuning into the show that's changing lives around the world. Until next time, I challenge you to do something this week to get S'more Outdoor.